adding a lot of value. Welcome to the call.
Yeah, thank you guys. Sorry, do a few things well, but obviously technology here today is not one of them. So I actually don't know what's going on, but we're good. We're here, so let's go.
Awesome, awesome. Well, for those of us that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your team, the market that you work in, and your business area, so to speak, who you're servicing.
Yeah, so we're in the Arizona market, and we've got about 26 on the team now, about 9 success team members between runners and admin, which we call our success team, and then 1 VA that really helps with the listing side of the management, and then the rest are our agents. So, and I'm in my 20th year of doing this. I've always done geographic farming. So, oh, there we go. So that's kind of how we built the business, was on a platform of consistency in a geographic area that, you know, then creates predictable, repeatable business. And then of course in Arizona, it's just been a constant, you know, adapting to all the different changes in the market, from, you know, the short sale REO days to the investor market, to kind of a somewhat of a normal market, to then the iBuyer market, and then whatever we want to call it today. So, but through it all, we've never changed the consistency of, you know, geographic farming and then database sphere, which would be our, you know, number 1 and 2 lead sources. So anyway, you guys tell me. I'm here for you. What do we need to talk about? What can I hopefully share?
Awesome. No, and I said, everyone, please type your questions in the box. However, what right now is leading you and your team to success throughout this shift and the pandemic our world is facing?
Well, you know, I mean, we've been pretty blessed. I mean, things have stayed pretty busy for us still. We did shut down the office for about 6 weeks. And really through that time, I would say probably the number one thing was just, you know, the accountability with the team, still measuring numbers, still going over the scoreboard, did a few internal contests, just, you know, all high touch, no sales approach, just really, you know, being there for people more so when they needed us more, which was just kind of that calming voice. Because the problem with today's world is so many people get their information from sources that don't always tell the whole story, or maybe tell a larger marketplace or a national marketplace. People need to really hear from us more than ever right now. So that was a big thing, was, you know, adapting quickly to, you know, how many calls we're making to our you know, current clients and database, because that was a big deal, especially people in escrow, you know, wondering, should I still be buying this house? Should I still be doing this? And then, you know, handwritten notes, we did a contest on that. So it was really about being there for people when maybe there, you know, it wasn't selfish. It was meant to be very genuine. And it was just a quick script, you know, hey, it's Kenny. This isn't a real estate conversation. Just wanted to, you know, see how are you guys holding up, and then just shut up. And really was well received. Lots of bomb videos, you know, just to put a face with the name, because I think it's important that people, you know, see us, plus they can hear the tonality and the sincerity versus, say, an email or a text. So video's been, you know, a big thing for us, especially with bomb because it's so easy to track. It integrates into all the systems. And, you know, if you can't get them on the phone, or, you know, it's after hours or early and you just want to do that, that's been a great tool. But I think people need to see us more in the challenging times than in the good times. I mean, anybody can do anything then. So for us, it was just that reassurance that the activities that everybody is doing is just continuing to stay top of mind for the client, to offer resources, and then just keep planting seeds that, you know, we're here for you. Here's what the market's really doing, contrary to what you may hear in the media, and really what their market was doing. So just high touch, high accountability through all this, so that no one, you know, really felt distanced, because, you know, when you're all in the same office, it's, you know, it's great, you know, culture, positivity, the connections. When people are at home and they're not getting the same conversion, it's easy to get, you know, down on yourself, start thinking about things, versus, you know, having that light at the end of the tunnel, which is keep pushing activities more so than ever, and the rewards will follow once people, we get through this and people are ready to go again, which is what's happened this last week. It's been pretty amazing so far. So.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned, high touches, a lot of information and educating your buyers and sellers. How often are you providing them with a market update or their neighborhood update?
Well, some of it's automated, of course, and that's just a monthly with past clients. They just get the monthly. We do 2 videos a month through viral marketing. That way they're done, and that's a market update via video. So I would say, at a minimum, they're getting those 3 touches from the team. And then, as a business, at a minimum right now, it's set up for 4 times a year, that it's either a call, a handwritten note, or a video, depending on what you've done last, just to touch base. We just had to, we had more time on our hands in the last couple, last 6 to 8 weeks. So it's just been more frequency and more of an opportunity to really just check in on everybody. And then we shared a lot of those stories internally of some of the feedback and things people are getting, because it really encourages people when it's someone they know that, can share the story.
Definitely. So how are you keeping a positive mindset in addition to your team members?
It's just a choice, like always. You have to look for it every day. Like I have a little Facebook page called Positive Hub I started a few years ago. It forces me to post something positive every day to share in that group. And, really just knowing, and I know we hear a lot of cliches, so I hate to sound like it, but knowing that this too shall pass. I mean, we've been through enough other challenges in the past. This is the first of its kind in my career. But knowing that it's not permanent. And, it was really an opportunity for us to tell the story to our local markets, through us, for our newsletter, to our database, was, what's really happening. Because immediately, I don't know about you guys, but immediately a lot of people went right back to 2008, 2009, and 10 and going, oh shit, what's happening? The sky's falling. And then really talking them through it. Like, hey guys, that's not comparing apples to apples. That's a completely different conversation. And then leading that conversation. So, hey, back then for us in Arizona, rents were so low, prices were so high that people could walk away from their house and go rent. In this case, there's absolutely no reason to walk away from your house, because rent is the same or more now than what a mortgage payment is. Making sure they know that the mortgage stuff is completely different now as far as qualifying. And, we still have historically low rates, and we're still somewhere around 10,000 units below what we would even consider a balanced market. So when you remove the emotion and you can give them, truth and heartfelt facts and not be salesy during this time, we just found as a team to be extremely important. Come from contribution, lead with education, and that's what people are looking for. I think the biggest thing, I was having lunch with a guy today, I was like, the biggest thing right now is we don't own a lot of the same tools that we used to own as an industry. We lost search somewhere after 2006, home valuations, but what do we offer? And it's really that hyper local knowledge, that knowledge of the local market, that the true snapshot of what's going on. And that's where the education comes from, to make sure people know, like, we always grade ourselves. Like when we get to the end of the transaction, would the client say they could have done that without us? Or do they say they could only have done it with us? Meaning that they truly needed representation. Because again, I don't know about you guys, but how many of people now find their own houses and send you the link to the house they want to see? We've bought a lot of time back that we used to be out showing houses. It seems like, you showed 10, 20 houses. Now, we're averaging 6.4 showings per contract. So the average agent's only showing about 6.5 homes before they write an offer. 15, 20 years ago when I was out showing a lot, it wouldn't be uncommon to show 16, 18, 20 homes a day or a weekend to people multiple times. So what are you doing? And this is an opportunity to, really get educated. I know we've all kind of been Zoom meeting to death over the last 2 months, but what are the podcasts you're watching? What is the actual, are you really diving into your local stats so that you can really, be that voice for people? And I think that'll continue. I think the opportunity is still there if we come from an education standpoint and like educating people on what's happening in the market, common home inspection things, common, the lending stuff was a whole nother opportunity, right? People hear forbearance, but they don't understand what that really means and the effect on them. So I think when you lead with, being the educator, because anybody can find an agent anywhere in a moment's notice. But what makes you stickier is you truly provide value, not just the ability to unlock a door for somebody.
I couldn't agree with you more, especially because there's so much hype and talk on the news and what's the truth. So definitely being that expert and helping them navigate without the emotions. What expenses did you and your team cut as a result of the shift?
We cut a couple big ones and then a bunch of just little stuff, or renegotiated a lot of stuff because, all you have to do is call and talk about canceling, and they tend to have a new program available. We did cut radio out, which I had only been doing about 5 months. So we hadn't really, gained the market share or the what we wanted out of it. And then we did skip, which I haven't done since 2009. We skipped one newsletter, so one full cost of a month of the newsletter. But what we did is we put one out like 2 weeks late, and then the following month, which is this month, it's coming out this week. But we're calling it like our June issue. So over the course of the 8 weeks, they got one, instead of at week 1, like week 2, and then like week 6, and then we'll start again. But it was just a quick way because I didn't know in the beginning to save, $8,000 that month without, hopefully losing any momentum. And then just the little stuff, the stuff that you find on your credit card that you don't realize you're still paying. And we did it both personally and professionally. We went through all of our home stuff, start renegotiating all your, cable and DirecTV stuff and all that kind of stuff, and look for other options. So the good news is, quite honestly, there wasn't anything major because we keep an eye on it monthly anyway, and percentage wise, but definitely looked at a few things and said, all right, we need to pause that, or we need to stop that for a little while.
Sure. It seems like the recurring message I hear is cancel the credit card, see what you even have as an auto charge to see who calls you.
It's the easiest way to get them to call you. So
there you go. We have a couple of questions from the audience. It says, last time you were here, you talked a lot about iBuyers. How is the iBuyer programs competing with the traditional sales in the market right now?
So they've all just relaunched in the last, 2 weeks roughly. Open Door was the first to pause and the first to come back. They are running a couple new programs right now. One I just found out today, they are gonna sunset. It's just not working. Their fee is much higher right now. It's almost like when they entered the market. So they're only in Arizona and North Carolina right now, but they will be relaunching their markets. But they're running a 12% fee right now. That will be changing, but that's just where they started. OfferPad is, I think it's 7.5, and Zillow is just relaunching right now. It really showed you the amount of demand the consumer has for that product. And I think it's going to be even more in demand as we come out of this market, for the sake of, at least for the first, 3 to 6 months, just people don't, they don't want people in their house necessarily. And so I think it's really a bigger value, but it's still a big part of the market out here. And, we use it as a tool still, just to give people all their options. We've added a couple new options in there. So when we sit at the table, we just have, we're just a resource of what's the best way, how do you want to sell your house? And then, you have traditional, you have iBuyer. There's a couple other things that we've added, lease purchase, a couple other options that are available in our market. And so just, being the biggest source of resource and biggest solution-based team is really what we continue to do. So good question. And yeah, the iBuyers are still there. I think that, some of them won't make it back, but the big ones are already back and moving forward.
Excellent. Now, going back to, you mentioned accountability with regards to your team, and some of us on the call don't necessarily have team members yet I always am a firm believer that we should all follow a schedule. So what is those accountability standards for your teammates? And also what does that look like for you and your schedule each day?
Well, for the team, it was just a matter of keeping everybody in touch, right? So still doing Zoom team meetings, Zoom script practice, reforecasting numbers if they didn't hit their goals, attention to the lead and lag measures. Are they, we had to get to 100% on Boomtown, that there was nobody without a to-do, nobody without a follow-up, to really use this time to get caught up on everything, but ultimately not let our foot off the gas, because people still have goals they want to hit, and not giving up on it either. Not saying, well, because of this pandemic, this is what, hey, keep planting seeds, because we believe the third and fourth quarter could be the biggest we've ever had. I mean, we were on pace for a record year in the first quarter, and I don't believe that's just going to go away. And then, just the 411s, I mean, Ty's still doing those virtually. And that is really, for my team, it's like free coaching internally. And then, of course, I have my coach. And so just, as much as I didn't want to hear everything, just that accountability to say, just don't take this time completely off. Now, with that said, I have encouraged some people to, take this opportunity. You're doing the activities, go live life a little bit. This is an opportunity to kind of do some things that maybe you haven't been able to do. But really just, it's not letting anybody distance from the herd, if you will. It's really, keeping the culture together, even if it is just remote, and letting people know we care. I mean, we have a lot of great people, and, it's tough when they're not in the same room every day or in the same environment, but we just didn't want to let our foot off that gas, and, continue to keep learning. Our book club has gotten stronger, just things to really connect the team.
So what does lead generation look like for you? Did you increase it?
Lead gen is only went up during this, and I think that's proven by most of the online portals. Is more and more people are searching online, and so just that response time, to those leads, making sure that the drips, the follow-ups, we adapted, a few of the drip campaigns so that they were more insightful to what we were going through right now. But lead gen is just, it's consistent. It's all the time. And a lot of that, like I said, was the stuff that we could control. Just all the additional calls that were made, as well as handwritten notes, we really pushed all of that so that, we were really out there. So.
And then another question from the audience. If your team is not knocking doors, what have you been doing to replace the face-to-face touches? Is that just the note cards?
Yeah, and in fairness, we've never been a big door knocking team. We did 7 open houses this last weekend. Everybody was ready to go, and all of a sudden I was getting complaints that we ran out of signs, and I'm like, okay, that's a good problem I'll have. But yeah, just honestly, just the focus on the personal touches to the people that matter most, and that's your database, and then your current clients that were in escrow. We really increased the amount of touches to them during this time, because they're hearing all this stuff in the media, the news. They're nervous. Are they doing the right thing? And just to kind of be that reassurance and be there for questions. And I think people need it. We get so used to doing this business sometimes that we forget that when we go through the experience, how you're on pins and needles the entire process, because it's nervous-ing. It's scary. Am I doing the right thing? But no let up on any of the one-on-one. Like this month, our book club is Ninja Selling, which is really all based on those same pieces. It's just high touch with the client, and and again, having something of value to talk to them about, not just crap, but leading with education and something that is useful for them.
And you touched about the importance of educating the buyers and sellers. Aside from your emails with the market updates, what else are you doing? Did you create a YouTube channel?
We're actually working on that as we speak. So we have a collaborative document going through the office right now. We're going to be creating a podcast called like Arizona Homeowner. And the idea being is, what are the common things that we see in the market? Because we have a very interesting job that we do, and we get to see all kinds of crazy stuff. And so to have some industry experts. But we, again, going back from education, we want to build this podcast based on explaining, where's the shutoff valve to your house, and how often should you drain a water heater? Just a lot of the things that we see all the time that we know that people don't know, that they could subscribe to and click on, different videos about, those different subjects, and why they're happening. And I think if we can continue to show that we really know a lot about a house and things that people don't always think about, because a lot of agents walk in like, oh, there's granite, there's stainless. And it's like, well, they can see that. Like, what else are you offering? So the podcast is the next thing that we're gonna start filming that, so that we have, a month's worth at a time, and do a weekly. And some will just be dialogue, some will just be, interviews with other industry partners, but to really talk about, things that are most common in a house that we see, or, the mortgage, or, the value of a home warranty, all the different topics. So we've just been having everybody send ideas for the podcast, and we're getting quite a list of things that I didn't even think about. So it's going to be pretty awesome, I hope.
I'm sure it will be. Aside from educating your buyers and sellers, what are you doing to educate yourself?
Oh, that's a constant passion of mine. So, lots of podcasts. Gary and Jay had theirs this morning, although it turned into a lot of talk about Levi's and shoes and stuff. But, constantly podcast. We're doing the 66-day challenge right now. So mine is, how many pages I'm reading per day. Really trying to get away from some of the audiobooks, because I just don't retain like I do when I read and highlight, and building that out. And so for me, it's the 5 circles still. It's putting a little bit in everything, physically, mentally, spiritually, professionally, and financially, to make sure that I'm putting a little bit in each bucket so that I can be more well-rounded. Sometimes we just get too into the business, and, then we end up not happy in other parts of our life. And then it has a direct effect on ultimately our business. And so just continuing to look at all pieces, how am I feeling physically and mentally? And, I always look at it like, you got to put in a little bit of good before you go screw off. So if you want to go have fun time, you got to put in the work first, and then you earn the right to go, have a good time and go do the other things. But personal growth is, as you know, just from us talking before, is the number one thing to me to success. It truly, you're your number one asset. Your world's only going to grow to the extent that you grow. And, as John Maxwell says, you can't take someone somewhere you haven't been. And so to really live that and make sure, plus it just gives you more conversation, and you feel better at the end of the day that you've done some good, even when there isn't a transaction that day or that week, which can get pretty disappointing and scary. If you're working to be the best you can be, I believe I've never seen anyone put in a tremendous amount of action and not equal opportunity eventually.
And any podcast that you might recommend to the group?
Buffini is a big one for me, just because he has he's like a stand-up comedian. But so Brian Buffini's show is all the time. I was listening to Gary's this morning, Think Like a CEO. I finished that. I started listening to Entree Leadership with Dave Ramsey. I've got John Maxwell, Building a Story Brand. I like that one. So several like that. And then, of course, TED Talks, and actually done a little bit of Netflix stuff. I don't, if you guys have seen like The Making of Warren Buffett, Inside Bill's Brain, Bill Gates was interesting. You just pick up a few things, and then you can watch, whatever the lion one is right now, whatever, like earn the right to go do that, watch something good, and then go do that.
What about books might you recommend?
So right now, and this is a little bit early, but this is the one I shoot with my background, but it's called Big Potential by Sean Acker, Achor. That is going to be more leadership and team based probably than individual, but it certainly applies to individual. Ninja Selling, of course, which we're starting on as our book club, is a great one. And then I know I've got several other in my audio book. Those are the two right now. I got Death by Meeting, which I just got from Patrick Lencioni. And then I don't know if you guys have, just for a good practice, read, 5, the book, Where Will You Be in 5 Years? It's just called 5 with a big 5. Sorry, I don't know how to make that go away, but so anyway.
Awesome. And another question from the audience, what will you be doing differently because of this market? I'm assuming, Adam, if you're clarifying it moving forward, something you've changed that you will not change back, that it will stay with your business model.
And I wish I had a clear answer for you on that. I think initially right now it's just, asking more questions and being sensitive, because everybody views this time in the world different right now, as far as how they've handled themselves. So I think, understanding that. But other than that, I mean, I don't feel a big change. I hope we don't end up doing too much more virtually. I was a little bit nervous when everybody was, doing virtual open houses and virtual stuff, because, that the more that we promote that, the more it takes kind of the person out of the element. And so, but I don't really see any major change that I think that we are saying, well, we have to do this different. At the end of the day, people still wanted to go look at a house. They still wanted representation and someone to guide them through the process. So.
Right. And you mentioned, I know over here in California, we're chomping at the bit to be able to do an open house. So what were your restrictions, or what did your restrictions look like? And then did they get lifted, I'm assuming?
Well, I mean, some people still did some. We just chose not to, for public perception too, and for safety. But our stay-at-home order was lifted last week, and there was already a lot of agents starting to do them. So there were signs out, so it looked somewhat normal. And then you just take the precautions at the house, mask, gloves, sanitizer, wiping stuff down, and again, permission from the sellers and that. But so far we haven't had any pushback or issues with that. But definitely, we had stopped doing them for probably, 7-8 weeks there.
Sure. And what did you do in the absence of open houses, since we still aren't permitted to do formal open houses?
Yeah, we tried to do some of the virtual, just shoot the video and talk through the house like a lot of people were. So nothing, overly unique there, but just really trying to make sure and, talk to people about what was going on in the market. So for a lot of our posts, it was more, like we did a graphic with like 4 houses that we listed right after, the pandemic started, and then all the stats on those 4. How many offers, what the offer look, because we just wanted people to feel comfortable that yes, people are still buying and selling real estate contrary to what the media says. So we really tried to focus on this house went on after this date. Here's what happened, and just telling the story. We did with our town council. So for the city of Mesa, the guy who represents our district, about 2, probably maybe 3 weeks ago now, we did a town hall meeting and we invited everybody to it. We talked about local economics, what's new coming to the area, and we let him tell the story. Then I got to talk a little bit about me and my brother about the real estate side, what's happening in these specific zip codes in this market, and kind of where we see things going. So it was just, the goal was to not become a secret agent for those eight weeks or so, or however long it was going to be, and still be leading the conversation. And I've talked about this when I've taught, just too many times, we're playing defense instead of offense. So we're allowing, the media or Zillow or whoever to tell the story in the way that they want to tell it, instead of us being able to tell the story from our perspective in that local market that I think has a better connection. But too many times agents are reacting to it and talking negatively or getting upset. And it's like, well, what did you do though? Are you doing anything about it? So we really tried to do, we still did our home buyer workshops. We just did them, online, Zoom. I think we've got one actually this week. So our homeowner workshops and things like that. And then I just try to get creative. I mean, my brother made a post about, I think it's 57% of Americans have more than $150,000 in equity in their house. And these are things when people think the sky's falling and you start realizing, wait a minute, they're sitting on that much. I mean, well over half of America has that kind of equity. It was a graphic that I wanted to share. So I shared that graphic, and then I just said something like, have you considered, unlocking some of your equity and maybe considering an investment property or a second home? I said it almost seems illegal, but it's not, to allow someone else to pay off your house. And I had 3 interactions with that. One guy came in, we did a consultation. I actually thought we were going to write an offer this weekend, but he decided not to. And he's keeping his current house as a rental and going to buy another one. And I think that's really, it's moments like that when I go, yep, we've got to do a better job of really creating opportunity for our database and for our clients and for the public to show that we do something that not everybody else is doing, which is offer solutions and opportunities, whether it's a self-directed IRA, whether it was, this. I talked to a client out of San Diego this morning. He's got a program with people's retirement money that he can lend out 90%. So if they've got $1 million in their retirement, he could lend out 90% of that, doesn't affect their credit, and it's a fixed rate for 5 years at 1.9%. So if somebody's looking to buy an investment property with their own money, they could unlock that. Let's just say 200,000 or 300,000. Your market, I know it'd take all 900. I get that. But in my market, they could buy like 3 houses for that, or even 2, and build wealth that way. So it's not for everybody, but most people, like this guy I was talking to, he turns 50 this year, and his story was, well, this is what my dad did, and I've just been paying off my house, and I have all this equity. And I'm like, yeah, but the equity's doing nothing for you. What if you don't take it all out, but what if you took a little out? And I said, it's up to you. I said, my goal is to help you get educated. You make a decision. Even if you don't buy, my guess is you'll end up talking to someone else and say, you should talk to Kenny. He told me about this and this idea. And that's where I say, I look at when Gary always talks about how he built Keller Williams. I mean, how did he build Keller Williams? He taught classes in the local market, and he gave, ultimately to receive. So he gave his time and educated people. And eventually people were like, well, I want to be around that guy. He's pretty smart. He knows what he's talking about. And you look up, and here we are today. So, success leaves clues, right? So.
Absolutely. Well, and I think our California realtors can find equity in homes here and then use you as a referral partner and buy investment properties in Arizona.
Well, that's why he called. That's why he called me. Honestly, that's why he called me, is because he's bought 3 with me now, all sight unseen. He wants to buy another one right now. Of course, he wants the deals he got, a couple of years ago. But that's why he was calling. And he said 2 of my agents in San Diego, they've now referred a couple of high net customers to me because I had told them about this product, and now they're buying investment properties. And then he goes, I thought of you because I'd like to be able to connect some of those guys with you to send out to Arizona, because they could buy more property. And I mean, let's face it, if LA County or whatever stays on lockdown, through August, I've heard, I think we're going to see more and more people from California moving to Arizona or, Vegas, Oregon, or Idaho, Texas, those markets. And I think we're just sitting in a really good spot when you look at the affordability. And let's face it, if you've had to stay at home for the last 8 weeks, in a 1,200 square foot, $800,000 property, it's, I'm sure you're thinking, wait a minute, I can get 2 of those out there. And so, we're actually looking at doing some streaming out in your market, ironically, called tiredofcalifornia.com, and just pushing people to the idea of options and have a resource out here. Because, I think it's our job to help people build wealth. And, that's actually in our why, is to help people achieve the American dream and build wealth through home ownership. And I think it's a huge thing that most of us haven't looked at. And if you haven't read MREI, Millionaire Real Estate Investor, I recommend it. I mean, what would it be like to teach a little class in your local community about, how to build wealth through real estate, have a couple experts there. And it just, again, you have to take action. You can't sit back and wait. We have to put ourselves out there and start leading some of these conversations. And a lot of it for me is just through education, because I'm a high I, so it doesn't feel salesy. It feels value. And when someone connects, man, it is super motivating. So.
Definitely. Well, and you're creating transactions or referral fee opportunity and just showing value that they'll probably refer their friends to say, did you know this? Especially with super low interest rates, they could pull out the equity and reinvest it to create more generational wealth.
It's funny how many people just, their parents didn't risk, so they don't risk, and they don't know how to get to that next level. So, I tell them, look, I had no history with my dad. I mean, he never had an investment property. I bought my first investment as a little condo. Next thing you know, we had like 14 of them. And then he's like, well, what are you doing? And so, I ended up buying one with him, was his first one. And then he bought two more. But we kind of did it the reverse way. But because he knew me and trusted me, he was like, okay, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm letting someone pay off, 10 or 12 houses for me. And he's just like, how do you do it? It seems overwhelming. And I'm like, well, you get educated, you do one at a time. You figure out what works for you. And this Kirk guy was the same way. It was so interesting to hear him talk about his dad and his grandfather. And I said, man, I went through the same thing. I just had to understand it and then be able to, take a little risk. Because it is a risk. I mean, it always is, but it's such a calculated risk. And if you hold it with rents like they are, it's, when you start talking to people about someone else's paying off your mortgage, I go, what would that be like? And they're like, well, that would be great. Well, it can be done for sometimes as little as 20% down. And there's other ways to get that 20% down, self-directed, this other thing I just talked about through UBS, where they're borrowing off of their, and there's no qualifying, there's no credit check, anything, because it's your money. It's securing it with that. And I thought, man, at 1.9% fixed for 5 years, like that's some cheap money to go create an opportunity.
Hi, Hilda. Sorry, FedEx just walked in. One more question from, ironic enough. Another question says, I'm a new agent. What should my day, week look like?
And what a great question. I think that, the one thing with Keller Williams that I didn't have when I started is just such a culture of sharing and growing. And I quite honestly would, try to have a breakfast or lunch with some of the top producing people that most of the most successful people I know are the first to make, that they will make time and share with you. They don't try to keep it all in because they're confident in what they're doing. And then, like I said earlier, that personal growth side. So, we're in the relationship business at the end of the day. And the more knowledgeable you are, just in general, I went and took financial peace years and years ago with Dave Ramsey. And then I turned around, I started teaching it in the community, and you got to meet people. And so you had to learn it. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily for everybody, but it is for the majority. I mean, that's who he serves. Well, there was a lot of nuggets I took out of there that made me, sound a lot smarter than I was, but you start learning things. And so I think, no matter what your career does, no one can take away your learning. And then it's just, it's a lot of practice. The thing about real estate is, we tend to wait for a client and then figure out what the hell to do with them, versus, shadow people, do open houses, just fail faster. You just have to keep practicing. And one thing I never did, and I wished I would have done sooner, is really got a script practice partner and really got good at the objections and the scripting, so that when I'm actually playing the game, it's just a natural reaction and response. I can't tell you how many times I probably had commission questions and just rolled over because I didn't really have a good response. And you hope you sold them on yourself, and then when it still came up. So I think, reading and growing, don't overclass yourself either, meaning don't go to too many classes and never get anything done. But you've got such an opportunity to write handwritten notes, call people, let them know, what your new career is, and what you're going to do.
Absolutely. And scripts and role play, would you say a large part of their week?
Well, let's take, for example, we'll just say, whoever, a pro athlete. It wasn't like, I don't know, who do you guys have out there? Who's a popular athlete? I stumped you. Anyway, well, let's just, for the sake of conversation, let's take, doesn't matter. say Tom Brady, just for the sake, I can't stand the guy because I'm a Steelers fan, but let's just say it's not like he just shows up on Sunday and plays the game. I mean, they're practicing 5 days a week. They're truly scripting. Like if the defensive back comes up on you and you're a wide receiver, then, we're going to call this and then fake and go. Like those are scripts that are done way in advance. So when they get to the field, it just happens. It's not, oh shoot, we should have done this or we should have done that. And I think, we have to look at ourselves kind of as corporate athletes sometimes. Like we don't tend to take a rest like an athlete would, but if you truly, want to get better, you've got to go practice, take a little break, practice. And then when the game time comes, you're ready to go. And I think too many of us just think we're going to figure it out on the fly at the expense of a consumer.
I totally agree with that. Thank you. I just want to ask the group if there's any other questions before we end today. And don't forget broker hour at 4 p.m. with Eric.
I got a quick question.
Please.
All right, Rob.
Kenny, we've seen you on stage with Gary Keller. You're in Gary Keller's top 100. You have your own building, office. I think you own a restaurant right next to it as well. What's next for you? What's next for Kenny Klaus? What does that look like?
It's a great question. At 39, I went and met with a financial planner and I just said, if I want to retire at 50, 52, and 55, what do I need to do? And so he, again, it's very transparent. You got to put it all out there. Like, here's the dumb stuff I've done. Here's where I'm at today. And he just said, you need to save this much monthly, this much annually. This needs to be paid off. So these are cash flowing. And I'm so competitive and goal driven. It's like, all right, let's go. So I turned 49 in June. I wasn't sure with this coronavirus if that was going to push me back at all because I didn't know what was going to stop. But my goal is a year from June to be self-insured and to be able to have choice. And that will include, again, I don't know 100% because I'm not going to step out of this. I mean, I still love it and I'm passionate, but really trying to bring a couple people up through the team, my leadership team that, know that I'm making less and less decisions so that eventually they can run it. I plan on doing, flips still. I love doing flip houses and then a lot of travel. I've got 5 grandkids currently. My youngest just graduated this year from high school. So eventually, my daughter just got accepted to nursing school. So those 2 will be someday having kids. So, my goal is to spend that time and travel and do the things that I've watched my parents, like my mom now has Alzheimer's. She's in a community. You just don't know, what life will do. And I when you're just chasing money every day, you're trying to make more money, you're never going to have enough because you don't know what your purpose is. And for me, it was to have enough to live comfortably, not extravagantly, but to then go live life on my terms. So whether it's a, big RV, we've talked about just touring, seeing the country, the wonders of the world. Like, I just know I want my time. I've worked hard to buy my time back, and that's a big piece for me.
Awesome. Last question, is any part of that, how much of that is profit share? Has profit share been big for you?
Not big. It's one thing that, when I joined Keller, I had a successful business and I'm all based on production. Like, let's go what I can control. And profit share, I have some ownership in Market Center now. And so there is definitely, I've got about 14 different passive income streams. So teaching others to create those in my team is a big deal. And that has, been a big part of it, but it's definitely, profit share is one of them. I've honestly just never put a system around recruiting. We do have that person now, our director of sales who has, but quite honestly, he ends up, taking them. And unfortunately, I'm not in his downline, but it's definitely, think about lining those up and who wouldn't want, to create, multiple passive revenue streams. And that's, we've always sacrificed so that we can reinvest so that, eventually there'll be enough coming in without having to work if I choose.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Before you go, make sure to share your information with everybody so that
Hey, you got
so
18 there, huh?
been around
They're
for a
all
while.
over, Kenny. Everywhere I find Kenny referrals, Kenny referrals.
I got to get you a 20, but yeah. And we also created just a website for referrals to make it easy. I know, Kelly and all that, I get that. We have referarizona.com. So we just make it easy. The referral form is on there. You can just fill in your information, but just referarizona.com and try to keep it simple because we do get a lot out here, a lot of KW referrals. We truly appreciate it. And, know that we'll do everything we can to take good care of them. So, I encourage everybody, now is such an opportunity because there's so many people scared and their heads in the sand and they hope this is going to go away and they just hope. And all I can say is, drive your own destiny and by the actions and the activities and the people you're surrounding yourself with, because it's everything. And, I do believe this too shall pass. I just don't want to be starting my engine then. I want to be ready to go. And so I think, too many people took a lot of time off during this and I understand a little bit, but activities will truly equal, opportunities. It's just, it doesn't always, we're such an instant gratification world that we forget to plant seeds and then have a consistent harvest down the road.
No, I love it. Activities equal opportunities. I just wrote that down. So, well, Kenny, I really appreciate your time and thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Sorry about the challenge at the beginning. You had so much value from you, Kenny. And again, please think of Kenny for your Arizona referrals. I could say he does a 5-star experience referral, so thank you for that.
Thank you,
And
Kenny.
everyone, 4 o'clock with Eric, so don't forget for our broker hour.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenny.
Bye-bye.
Oh.